Section 1. Uniqueness. Moments of everyday life are extremely important in a story. They allow you to get to know the characters and make them more human, more real. The exact same argument also applies to interactions between characters, which, in addition to all this, also have the added value of developing bonds. If you write a series of individual scenes well, but you've never shown me the characters living or interacting with others, no matter how wonderful those scenes may be on paper, they will never fully land, because there is no build-up, there is no emotional weight, the impact is much weaker. Jujutsu Kaisen knows a thing or two about this. But when it comes to myheroacademia, the character building is absolutely there. The story is well structured, it breathes, and it allows you to grow attached to these people. I think that treating your characters as people and not as tools is the foundation of storytelling. Characters must be real human beings, with strengths and flaws. They must have multiple layers of depth that make them interesting. If they are treated only as tools to move the plot forward, that is a big problem. Likewise, fights must not be meaningless and exist just for the sake of existing. They must have a purpose. Section 2. Chapter 115. Chapter 115 is one of my favorites. I absolutely love it. The entire chapter is narrated by Twice and begins by showing us his routine. We see him smoking and watching people from the window of the room he's in. The reason why this chapter completely excels is that it manages to mix many elements. In addition to showing us a more intimate side of Twice's character, it also shows us the consequences that All Might's retirement has had on people and society. While at the window, Twice listens to the TV host Miyagi talking about the current situation. Without All Might, people are full of anxiety and concern for the future, and consequently Endeavor is obviously at the center of this discontent. We see Twice's reactions both to what Miyagi says and to Endeavor's new position. This is very interesting because, regarding Miyagi, Twice considers him different from the others and seems to be on the same wavelength as him. Meanwhile, he thinks that Endeavor is just some guy on whom the crown of #1 hero has simply fallen. He even manages to empathize with him and put himself in his shoes. We witness the suffering that Twice experiences because of his quirk and his past, a condition that we see worsening more and more throughout the entire chapter. Everything is changing, and with the void left by the #1 hero, crime is creeping in. The League is hiding and scattered around, with various members trying to recruit. The chapter concludes wonderfully with the introduction of Overall. Koerigoshi not only manages to give you a huge amount of information and develop the characters, but also moves the events forward by having Twice and Overall meet. When I first read these chapters, I was very impressed by the narration. It jumps from side to side and manages to tie everything together so harmoniously. Section 3. The Culture Festival. Of course, what I just described with Twice is not an isolated case and happens continuously throughout the work. For many people, these calm moments are completely useless. Specifically, I've heard many people speak harshly about the cultural festival, but in my opinion, they are the beating heart of a story, and without them nothing remains. The cultural festival advances and intertwines several plotlines. Throughout these chapters, we see all the students of Class 1A interacting with each other and their bond grows. But the character who receives the most spotlight is Jiro. I love her double splash page and the analogy between musicians and heroes, with the incredible following scene being Eri's liberation from Overall's chains. It's so beautiful. Gentle and Labrava are often downplayed and considered mediocre villains, but I think they are wonderful. The characters revolve around the concepts of failure and loneliness. Gentle's dream is to be remembered forever, to enter collective memory. He wanted to become a hero and kept trying the exam again and again, unsuccessfully. Then everything fell apart when he tried to save a man who was falling. This moment is wonderful. It shows his genuinely benevolent intentions and ties perfectly with the saving of UA. It's a colossal scene that shows Koerigoshi's skill. He had forgotten his dreams due to the misfortune that befell him. And in that moment there was a second catastrophic internal breaking point, when his former acquaintance, now a hero, didn't even remember him anymore. He realizes that he still has a chance to achieve his beloved dream, through evil. What's interesting is that he has a kind nature. He has no interest in destroying or conquering. The only thing he wants is to become unforgettable, and in fact he documents his actions, uploading videos on YouTube. The crimes he commits are barely definable as crimes because he just wants to become famous. He reflects people's own attacks back at them only to escape. Here the theme of failure returns, because he is literally a failed YouTuber, since his actions created dissent and he doesn't receive much popularity. Gentle's character shows the reader how society defines and considers certain people as failures. A gesture driven by a noble intention literally marked the rest of his life forever. After that event, he received hate and was kicked out of his home by his parents. His mother in particular is a crucial figure in his story because she never believed in him. His only real mistake was losing sight of what he originally wanted, helping others. Similarly, the character of Aiba is also based on a great collapse that eventually leads her to become a villain. But in her case, the methods and themes are completely different. When Aiba falls into depression and even thinks about ending her life, it is Gentle who saves her. He literally becomes her light, her reason to live, the reason why, after falling in love with someone, she observes them from afar and only later confesses is that, by nature, she struggles to interact and express her emotions well. Her quirk is literally love and affects the person she loves. Perhaps, to feel well, she needs to experience a strong love for someone. After all, we know that quirks can influence will or cause strong instincts. Every living being has DNA and something they need in order to feel well and survive. For example, human beings are social animals and need connections to thrive. Of course, this doesn't mean that their feelings are false or devoid of will. Moreover, the nature of a living being is not something absolutely fixed and unchanging. That is precisely the point of many villains' quirks throughout the manga. If someone had tried to help and understand Toga, she might have reached a different conclusion, managing to do good and use her power in a healthy way without causing pain to herself or others. We don't know the truth about Aiba, but I think it's a very interesting and valid theory. To embark on this new path, Gentle made an enormous effort, forcing himself to learn specific aspects of technology to create his videos. But despite all these efforts, his debut video attracted little attention and also received very critical comments. At that very moment, La Brava finally arrives, putting an end to Gentle's dark days and giving him hope. They literally lifted each other up, managing to live more happily. The flashbacks are scattered throughout the chapters and give you an increasingly broader picture as you move forward. Gentle always accepted Aiba without ever judging her superficially. In particular, I find the scene where Gentle copies Aiba's black rings with a marker to be beautiful. It's so sweet. Throughout these chapters, you see their love and bond grow stronger and stronger. All these scenes truly show the deep affections these two individuals feel for each other. Moreover, thanks to Aiba, Gentle's videos began to gain a much larger audience, since she is truly a computer genius and can create higher level content. Gentle, in addition to not seriously injuring anyone and having the sole goal of escaping, tries to attack only companies that are in some way corrupt. Right before the big day, Gentle becomes more and more frustrated and restless, but he manages to find the determination one last time and is ready to put his plan into action. Midoriya wants to protect the dreams and hopes of all the students who worked hard to organize this festival, while Gentle wants to take the first step toward eternal glory by invading UA. But during the clash, viewpoints and beliefs change. Gentle falls further and further into a dark and misguided path, while Midoriya continues to counter the statements spoken by Gentle. The two go back and forth on the issue and have a fantastic exchange of dialogue. The conflict shifts to the similarities between Midoriya and Gentle, eventually leading Gentle to abandon everything that defines him in order to win. In particular, I love the way Midoriya confronts Eri's pain. I find that this version of Midoriya was, in a sense, much more interesting and multifaceted than the one we see in the very last arcs of the manga. Although, of course, in those final arcs there are parts that work and parts that don't regarding Midoriya's character. You shouldn't lump everything together. The ending of the clash is so beautiful. You truly perceive these characters as people, their habits, their daily lives, the joy they bring into each other's lives. It fully reaches you. When La Brava realizes that Gentle has lost the battle, she immediately drops the computer and speaks to Midoriya. You can empathize with her words, with her situation, and you feel pity for them. Moreover, this is one of the first times Midoriya is faced so directly with the circumstances and pain of an enemy. Unfortunately, things turned out the way they did. However, it's interesting to see that Midoriya's expression here is doubtful, as if he doesn't quite know what to respond. Gentle ultimately understands that he was wrong and tries to at least save Aiba. She and Eri are the central figures of this entire battle. The reason people hate calm moments is simply that they are perceived as boring. People want exciting moments that give them thrills. Many people don't care whether a manga is well written and has a good structure, or they don't even realize its actual quality. The fact is that the masses tend to gravitate toward hype moments. This is one of the reasons why Jujutsu Kaisen, for example, is one of the most popular manga of recent years. This is just the first part of this video. Thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed.